I was born in Prešov, Czechoslovakia, in March 1935. My parents owned a store that specialized in musical instruments and fine leather goods. My father was a talented musician and composer who played at events across the city. My mother, a phenomenal salesperson. In 1938, the Slovak people seceded from the Czechs and became allies of Nazi Germany. Almost overnight, the Jews of Prešov were subjected to persecution and oppression. I was 7 when I was forced to wear the yellow Star of David. I became a target and laughingstock of bullies who called me dirty Jew and threatened to kill me. I was forced to drop out of public school in 2nd grade. My parents' business was Aryanized and we were ordered to leave our apartment. Our bank accounts were seized and travel out of the area required a special permit. Kind Christian friends risked their own lives by hiding us in their homes. A Nazi soldier was a customer in my parents' store that winter. He described to my mother atrocities committed against the Jews in Poland. This encounter convinced her to have me smuggled across the border to Kassa, Hungary, where my aunt and her family lived freely. My mother bought me a new winter coat for the journey. She advised me to pose as an orphan and to lie as needed without fear of punishment by God. A man my parents hired, a complete stranger to me, picked me up one day in March 1943. I was 8 years old. We walked country roads and snow-covered fields in freezing temperatures from early morning into night until we reached the border. At the Slovak side of the border, the man made me crawl like a rabbit across a large meadow and he disappeared into the woods. I was terrified to be alone. I cried and trembled as I made my way across the field. After a while, he reappeared and consoled me with the news that I had crossed the border without being detected. I spent the night at a farmhouse and the next morning the smuggler drove me to a street corner in Kassa and left me there. I was picked up by a police and questioned the entire day at police headquarters by Police Chief Chatari. He couldn't understand how I had been able to cross the border on my own. I told lie upon lie and was finally released to the care of my Aunt Ella. I lived an entire year with Aunt Ella and her family until March 19, 1944, when the Nazis occupied Hungary. I was determined to return to my parents, and at age 9, I was smuggled back into Slovakia. Following our reunion, we moved to Mikuláš near the Tatra Mountains. We lived as Gentiles with false baptismal birth certificates. The search for Jews intensified, and with the help of a young peasant, we walked into the mountains. After several days of walking in winter weather, we came upon a small cabin used by shepherds in the summer. The tiny cabin was already occupied by a number of Jews in hiding. They reluctantly made space for us. A pot-belly stove heated the structure. I was bored and volunteered to collect firewood and tend the fire. It burned around the clock. It also became my job to erase footprints in the snow when people left the cabin for certain tasks. This could literally save our lives as it prevented detection by hunters and Nazi spotter planes. On Christmas 1944, a partisan warned us that a large contingent of Nazi soldiers was headed in our direction. 6 of us left the cabin for a cave my mother had seen higher in the mountains. I was the last to enter and leaned 2 large pine branches to disguise the entrance. A couple of hours later, we heard gunshots and Germans shouting, "Raus, Juden!" Then screams of young mothers, "Nicht schießen bitte, kleine Kinder hier!" The Nazis then set the cabin on fire and rounded up our companions. They searched the area around the cave. The branches concealing the cave saved us. We constructed a temporary dwelling higher up in the mountains. Our meager food supplies were exhausted by mid-February 1945. The miraculous appearance of a Slovak partisan with a huge chunk of raw beef saved our lives. We were liberated a month later by the Russian army. When we returned to Prešov, we found out that nearly half of our family had perished in concentration camps.